Okay, there we go.
Okay. Okay.
All right, sir, we are all set.
Ready to go?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to convene the September meeting of the Board of Police Commissioners and for Madison. I'd like to open our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. And I do have a flag on my desk. So,
There you go.
officials. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the
To the
flag
flag
of the
United States
of
of
America,
and to the
and to the
republic
republic which it
for which
stands,
it stands, one
one
nation,
nation, under God,
under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
liberty
and justice for all.
Thank you.
I think we have to work on that.
We're terrible.
Whole army. Yeah, Captain, thank you very much for your administrative technical effort to bring us together for our meeting. I know this is it's got to be a little more challenging than in the next room. So first order of business is to review acceptance of the meetings. Is there a motion to accept the August minutes?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion regarding the minutes? I do have to comment that I think if you read through the minutes, it really is an excellent summary of the Police Accountability Act, and Chief Christie in her transcription really was able to capture, I think, most of the salient points. It almost is going to be helpful as we go through this during the upcoming session and review. That this is a good reference point. So I think there was a good job, and was not the necessarily the easiest read, but it does contain an awful lot of relevant information. So anyway, it was a good job. Any other comments, corrections for the minutes? Okay. Hearing none, is there a motion to accept the minutes?
I'll move
Okay.
to accept the minutes.
Second.
Okay. I guess we already made that motion.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, okay.
That's all right.
All those
Thought it was a new motion, sorry.
accepting the minutes, signify by saying aye.
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 Minutes are accepted. Captain, do you know if there are any members of the public who signed in this, our meeting? Can you tell?
As of right now, there are no members of the public, sir.
Okay. Chief, why don't we turn it over to you for your report?
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me? All right, we'll start off with financials. No new information, just one exception being that we're going to be continuing with the school has asked that we have 4 officers as opposed to the 2 SROs on campuses. At the beginning of the school year, I believe I reported that we're looking for the first 2 weeks. After discussion with the superintendent of schools, the acting, she asked that we continue it through September if we could. What I've done is I've let the Board of Selectmen and mostly the Board of Finance understand what we're doing, so that if we end up with a shortfall come late spring, we have to do an appropriation and they'll understand. So that's what's happening. That's going to be the only unexpected to the budget, and that's going to encompass essentially 2 pay periods, 2 officers, 2 pay periods. So at top pay.
I have
What
a
is that?
quick question on that. Does that in any way come from the funds for COVID?
Some of it, we can seek reimbursement. We've been putting it in there. I think that only one payment has come back so far from the federal government, from FEMA. But I think that we're probably going to use that along with what we've applied towards the shoreline impacts and see if we get the funding
Okay.
reimbursements. We're going to take a shot at it, if that helps. Yes.
Chief, what is the role of the additional officers? Is it a static role? Is it more patrolling? Is it related to traffic? Are they out of their vehicles? Could you just expand what they're doing a little bit?
Well, I see Commissioner Huey. She's smiling, so she's obviously been on site observing this. We're trying to control the chaos in a friendly way. We asked this morning that they stagger the arrival times or stage some of the people that are arriving for school on the main campus of the high school and middle school. The problem we have is when you get past about 15 cars coming in the driveway, trying to drop off their loved ones, we end up putting a block actually Cops Road in one of the schools. So we're trying to find a way to mitigate that. So the officers are moving quickly on their feet, trying to facilitate and mitigate the backup of parents bringing their children to school. So I guess it would be fluid. We're just trying to make it a little smoother. So we had a discussion this morning with the superintendent and with the principal to discuss what's a better way to approach this. And one of the suggestions was that we stage that they report to the school. We have somebody there from the school, the middle school, and instruct folks to then proceed to the elementary school.
Okay. It's got to be a new and different, opening school certainly than a lot of parents are used to.
And I think also some of the concern too that I've heard from many parents, because I have kids that are in elementary, middle, and senior, is that due to some of the air ventilation, doors have also needed to be open. So some of the concern was they wanted police presence there more as well. So it's been a very vocal topic amongst a lot of the elementary school and middle school parents.
Yeah.
What are you getting feedback or from the other parents?
Yeah, so they want police officers to remain, right? Because I guess the windows and some of the doors have to remain open for ventilation purposes. And the fact that, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was only a couple weeks at first that officers would be there. So obviously there's a concern for parents for security if we now have the doors and windows open. So that's also why I was seeing if we can get funding, reimbursement for it, because really the concern is increased due to the openness of our schools.
Yeah. Well, we have the accountability. We have the accountability for using one tracking number for all things related to COVID-19, all things in town, and hopefully we'll get reimbursed that. If not, it's got to be a special appropriation to get our labor line in order come May, June of next year. But I hope that it's. My guess we're probably going to end up there about 6 weeks until they have the new security officers on site trained, as they did hire an additional 2. We're still probably going to divert our patrols in that area to the schools anyway, until they go inside and shut the doors for the weather change.
I think that'll help the parents feel safer. Thank you.
Good. All right. Sorry, Chief.
So that's the only change to the budget. And we'll talk a little bit later, but the union ratified the contract today in their general meeting. The Board of Selectmen will take it up on Monday morning. There is some negative in the budget, but that has to do with whatever the settlement is in the contract, and HR will move monies over and bring those to the proper encumbered funds. So I don't have any other issues with the budget. We seem to be on track where we normally are at this time of year.
Okay. Activity and statistics, we doing those quarterly?
July, August, and September will be reported in the October meeting. As
Okay,
October, November, December would be reported in January 21 meeting. So we'll have all that for you in the 90-day as we elected to proceed with the beginning of the year. So is there any question on activity? All I could add to that is that we stepped up the patrols in the area of the school bus routes, the school routes that we have to accommodate mitigation of traffic issues that may occur.
okay,
Training, most of the training is online. It's more so geared towards administrative because of the changes in the Accountability Act. There's a lot of changes to how we train. So they want to obviously talk to the managers of each agency. So myself, Joe, and Richie have been attending those via Zoom or other WebEx programs. So those will continue. We have legal updates coming up in about 2 weeks, right, Joe? A week, 2 weeks?
okay. Maybe let me direct this at Joe, because I know you've been, Captain, you've been putting the training reports together. Could you give some thought, as we absorb the Police Accountability Act, whether we should change the format of our training report to provide an easier view to look at the level and the extent of the training and what's involved? I'm not suggesting we need to change it, but if there's going to be some training aspects that are mandated on a regular basis, maybe we need to reflect our training report so that the commission can look at it on a summary basis to verify here's the mandated training and here's the extensive the other extended training that we do. I know we've been committed to training. It's been a we've for a number of years we've looked at training as an investment, not an expense. I know it shows up in a budget line, but I think it's if we hope to have a secret weapon for the Madison Police Agency, it's our commitment to training, and it's an important area, and I just don't want to have it slide back to where it kind of gets lost in a paper shuffle. So if you could just take a look at it, if the way we lay it out is you think is clear, that's fine. But I think obviously all police departments are going to be talking about training in a much more focused way going forward. And if we can come up with a kind of a better mousetrap to summarize and describe the training we do, let's do it. Anyway.
Some of the additional that we're probably going to see sooner or later, and a lot of this depends on what happens in the early session of the General Assembly and what happens in January of 2021. Example, if we are compelled to hire MSWs on staff, there's going to be a training component there. And I'm not sure how we're going to be able to fund and have staff members MSW. We end up sharing them with perhaps people associated with the Board of Ed or with Youth and Family Services. That would seem like the natural way to handle it. So things like that I guess once we have a more clear, definitive path we have to take, that's the problem. It's very ambiguous right now. They passed the law, but it's ambiguous. Mm-hmm. And right now they're doing research on the MSW application. They had a Zoom meeting with all the police chiefs and managers and training officers last week. And they're trying to come back with some sort of assessment for all of us so we're all on the same page instead of having us independently do a study on it. So we'll wait for that direction and then find out what stays within that police accountability package.
Okay, good. Okay.
Any questions on that?
No.
Okay. The traffic report will be included in the October activity for a 90-day, although you probably still have it in your packet for accidents or accidents with injuries or car versus deer. I still do the compiler with the 90-day and comparative analysis of last year. And I'll do that in the October meeting.
Okay,
All right. Community calendar. I have 2 events. I have the Madison Pride Festival on October 17th. And that's out of one of the youth groups that are at the Congregational Church on the Green. That's going to be limited to 150 people, including vendors. That canvas is still wet. They're still planning that. There's been different meetings with different aspects, from the fire marshals to health department, of course, with the police department and the selectman's office. So we'd like it to be a successful event, but we have to be careful and still comply with what the mandates are out of Hartford and the health department statewide. So right now we're figuring 150, and with that, in the same is October 30th. There might be the 31st. We're not. Joe, I didn't say, there's a discussion with the chamber, maybe moving trunk or treat the day before. I believe it falls on a weekend this year.
mhm,
And so trunk or treat, we still want that to go on, because for us, that's it's a tremendous positive public relation program, well, certainly for this agency, in the spirit in which we started during the aftermath of a terrible storm that hit the town. I think that, seeing we have a lot of folks that are in their homes and working from home, and I think it'd be an opportunity for the parents and the kids to get out more socially. But once again, we're going to have to practice safe distancing and somehow make it work. And I told them, I think that between myself and Captain Race and a few others that are committed to the program, we should be able to make it work, and maybe encompass a larger area, maybe the whole Green.
mhm.
So
Is there, what's the publicity kind of time frame calendar for announcing that? I imagine there's certainly going to be a number of parents or families that are going to presume it's not going to be held, and I think given the uncertainty of everything going on, do you have a sense of?
it's almost like the assumption is it's going to happen. We'll let them know if it's not. But I think it's very important that it does occur. I think that we need to give some sort of hope for folks that we're coming out of this. Our hard work in limiting exposure to COVID. Most certainly the town's been most responsible. The vendors have been most responsible, the restaurants. Very few incidents of we'll call it abuse or people not complying. I just think that with this is a new normal, particularly for our children in school. And I just believe that it'd be a real positive thing to make it happen. So we're going to do what we can to make it happen. If I have to cancel it, it may be last minute, but I prefer to have it go through. I just think it's important. And we've had our name on this for about 8 years now, 9 years.
Okay.
Any questions, observations, comments? You agree, disagree?
I think that'll make a lot of parents in town very happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, kids are excited for it. So I think if we can do it safely, I think it's a great thing.
Yeah, it'll certainly give some semblance of normalcy,
Yeah. And if they can go to school for a couple hours a day, 2 days a week right now, why can't we do, trunk or treat?
We're going to make it work. I mean, I'm saying that, and hopefully it will happen, but we're going to do our best to make it work.
Okay.
We all would like it to work, right? No? Yes? Okay.
A lot of doctor nurses costumes, I would imagine, but.
There should be more masks, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
more.
I think it'll be innovative. This will be a very innovative event.
Yeah.
Let's see how people decorate their cars. So,
Uh,
outside of that, we haven't heard back for any of the structured races, or we hear virtual. I'm not sure how that works. Joe probably knows better on that. We're trying our best to accommodate those folks, but once again, it's very hard to control something that's moving between many towns. So some of these events that are 50, 60 miles, it's very difficult. And I know Hammond Acid is still, although they're open to a bigger capacity, of course, now it's changing. I think they're still going to restrict those who use the park for events.
Okay. Okay. Of course, Steve, there was, do you want to, is there any correspondence you want to cover? I know there's something included about regarding Linden Lane, or should we wait and do that under traffic issues?
I think any correspondence we could do during under traffic, that's fine.
Well, how do you want to just move into traffic issues and we can cover that? Tom, you can weigh in on if you've had a chance to look at this as well.
Yep, I have.
Okay.
So I go to traffic then if the commission approves.
Yep.
We had the request for the traffic study, traffic calming on Linden Lane. And a couple of the points are valid. However, you know, I'm sure the chief has been down there, as have I several times. It is a very narrow street, and some of the things they're requesting don't necessarily fit into the profile, I think, of the street. And I wanted to talk to John, who just recently came back from vacation, but evidently the town engineer and his crew are very, very busy because several projects we have in the mix are currently, you know, on hold and delayed more than what I think would be an appropriate amount of time. And I know you had made a suggestion about how we might want to do this. And just to include everybody for a quick review, the way the traffic log is set up, I normally get together with John. We have been doing it in person at the town office and try and review what's on the log and have a reasonable date involved for completion of these. But between the hurricane, town events, reconstructing of roads, it's very difficult to get a date that's accurate and dependable. So a suggestion has been made that perhaps Ed and I and the chief and John get together sooner versus later and come up with some kind of a plan on a timeline for answers. A perfect example for this is the intersection of Surf Club Road and West Wharf, where we received a request on July 2nd for some signage there because that intersection with the golfers, people walking back and forth from the Dolly, people walking to the Surf Club needs more than what is existing there. Now, I had the golf course actually trim the bushes there once for better visibility of the stop sign. They've overgrown again. John said he was going to take care of that today or tomorrow. However, we still don't have a plan for that location. And I think from July 2nd to now is too long to wait.
Well, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
In the area of the golf course, John puts that on the list and he goes to the public works director and they hit these as they go, I guess, as they do the assignments. I mean, there's more than one. There's also Liberty Street at Route 1. They have to trim back the sight lines there. That came to us by way of phone calls and letters, and that was a result of an accident that was there. And it's true, pedestrians stepping out cannot see going east or west. You have to almost step into the road to look. Bicyclists the same. Of course, those come out of Signal Hill, either end have the same challenges. So he agreed, and that was an email yesterday. As far as Linden, Route 1 in West Wharf, that's still a study ongoing with the DOT. At the golf course, I think when John gets it with the crew, they're going to do it, but they're going to redo the crosswalk and add the crosswalk horizontally and signage, additional signage. Might be worthy of a strobe there, who knows? Linden Avenue. Linden Avenue, we started that calming effect with reducing people parking on both sides of the road, which created somewhat of a very, very small opening for people to come down Linden Avenue, Linden Road place.
Lane.
Subsequently, what they've done is there's two people there that are full time. So they've taken upon themselves to ask for streetlights and for speed bumps. Now we know that we don't put speed bumps on certain roads, most certainly not on town roads, because we accept the liability if somebody gets hurt hitting them or damages their cars. Linden Avenue, I don't see it as the same problem that they may be seeing it as. I know that we've spent $41,000 additional police coverage in that area, right in that area, in that intersection. We have no parking signs we've added in the last 6 months. I've had a discussion yesterday with 2 of the people that live on that street. So we could do a study for it. I'm all for that, but I don't think it's going to pan out that it's going to cause a reduction in any posted speed limit or addition of the speed bumps.
I would agree, Chief, 100%. If, you know, every study costs time and dollars and manpower. And because of that street, the location, other than the addition of some signage, I don't see any kind of a fix that's going to make any sense other than, you know, the usual asking residents to be aware of what they're doing. This is similar to many of the requests. It's really a lot like Green Hill Road. Going to work east and west on Green Hill Road, the speed limit in no way equates what's actually going on. We can't station an officer there, but in those times when a cop is there, the speed limit is reduced. The rest of the time, it's on the people driving the cars, and they very rarely adhere to it.
I mean, there's some signage that works that would be appropriate. Then I have the other pushback. Why do we have so many signs? Why can't we park there anymore? I've been here for 25 years or something to that effect. I've always parked my cars there. Where are my grandkids going to park? And we get that. That comes back also, generally in phone calls. So it's has to be balanced. And I have a lot more intersections that require a lot more attention currently than the aspect of Linden. I don't have any accidents or injury to pedestrians to support what they claim. I think a lot of folks live in that area there just want to make it so that people don't go down the road.
I concur with that because the same statistic is available for West Walton Surf Club Road. I think in the 10 years that I requested, there may have been 2 accidents, and that would speak to everything is fine, but it doesn't speak to how close and how many are very closely avoided on a regular basis.
Yeah.
What about the fact that they caught their third point is the fact that they said every day at least one truck or person goes the wrong way down the street. I'm not familiar with that street. Is there signage saying it's one way?
Well, where that comes out is you enter from East Wharf and then it enters back on to Middle Beach Road.
Mhm.
If you were going south on East Wharf, it's going to be a left-hand turn, and about 100 feet, you'll see the end of the road. Basically, when you come to the end of the road, you look at the parking lot of East Wharf Beach.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
to Ann's question, yes, there is one-way signs at the entrance at both ends of Linden Lane.
And I can just add to that. I mean, there's one-way signs on Tuxas and people don't follow it. You know, there's
Okay.
contractors that will
Yeah.
turn down and it's a constant issue.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
Tom, just so we close the loop, there appears to be a consensus that this particular request does not have merit and it certainly cannot be justified either from an engineering or a practical point of view from a police traffic authority. Do we have a form response letter that would go back to this Kern Reed so that they're notified that we have reviewed it? Here's the decision that was made for these reasons, so that we can kind of say we've made a decision regarding this, and here's the consensus of the review by the police traffic authority.
May I add to this? There's some sort of dynamic going on right now on that road, on Linden Lane. Subsequently, examples. I have a letter which will be in next month's meeting, which came the other day, and that's how we ended up on Linden Lane talking to some of the people that live there. And a woman wrote a letter saying that there's been a rash of burglaries on Linden Lane. There's been a home invasion, armed robberies. And well, I'm trying to figure out what town that Linden Lane she's referring to. So because I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 incidents in 8 months there. Let me see. Parking violation, suspicious person, animal nuisance, suspicious vehicle. And the other one that was a crime was the theft of a dealer plate off a person who's renting a house there. And that happened when the kids come in from a lot of other areas and they take and steal cars that people leave their key fobs in different areas. Madison was hit again the other night, as well as Clinton and Guilford and Northford, not Northford, Durham. And subsequently, we recovered 2 of the cars in Milford. And of course, there's other cars taken out of that shopping center. So I met with one of the people there and residents, and they were telling me how one of the neighbors was telling them all this. Of course, I had to go talk to the neighbor who I recently issued a gun permit to. And I had a nice candid discussion with him. And I asked him, when did this all occur? And the final analysis is that it didn't occur. This is someone talking in the neighborhood. So I reminded him of the responsibility of a gun owner. And I explained to him about the kids that were going in the vehicles, the juveniles. And some of yes, they do go through cars that are left unlocked. And when people leave their key fobs in them, they take the cars. That's what happens, not just in Madison, across the board. And where the crisis that juvenile justice is in right now, even with us capturing or taking them into custody, sure that we're not going to pursue the vehicles. I don't believe we should be taking some young person's life because they stole a car if they crashed the car. So I tried to explain this. I have explained it. The gentleman who I'm referring to said he understood. He apologized. So that's why I talk about the dynamic of Linden Lane is that we need lights. We need. How long is the road? 300 yards? 20 yards?
Probably 300 max.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a lot of issues in town with traffic. I can name the streets. I'm also around school routes or commuter routes, as you pointed out earlier. I'm not dismissing them. I'm just saying that we spent a lot of time in that area, particularly in the last 7 months, more than most other areas of town.
I think if we can demonstrate, as we have over the years, Chief, and the other members of the commission, that when a request comes in, usually what has been my practice is their phone number. If there's a phone number on the request, I call whoever sends it in and say that thank you for sending it in. Here are some things about the location, about the request that perhaps you don't know, but in any event, it will be on the agenda at the next meeting. And with all the events that are going on in town and elsewhere, we will get to it as soon as possible. Here's my phone number in case you ever want to call for a follow-up. Here's my email if you ever want to call for a follow-up. And they very rarely do. We
call them as you do. We explain it to them.
No, I mean, you do, but I'm saying I initiate a call within 24 or 48 hours of their complaint being registered and give them an option to come back at any point in time. And then, Chief, you're excellent at following up with a letter after there's been some discussion and we mark the issue as complete or pending so they're not left holding. So I don't think anybody would have a valid claim to say that their issues are ignored. Most of the time, the complaint is they don't like the timeline in order to get an answer.
Yeah, listen, I having served in elected government before, I know people agonize over when they make a request to government. They feel the government doesn't listen. Most certainly, I'm very sensitive to that. And generally, I get back to people right away. In fact, I received a letter from the gentleman you spoke to the other day, and I called him already. So
Okay.
I think communication is huge. And I think a lot of the downfall of people, administrators, is they don't return calls, that they don't reach out to folks, because communication seems to be what causes most of the problems when people get disgusted with government or feel that government doesn't work for its citizens.
Well, look at, I think we've flogged the Linden Lane horse much as we can. I think, Tom, if you can work with either John Anako or so that they understand the issue has been that they raised has been reviewed, discussed thoroughly, including personal visits by yourself and the chief. And the answer is the current signage would seem to be appropriate in terms of how to control traffic, and the other suggestions, do not have any merit at this point. So,
You got- Consider it taken care of it.
okay, good, thank you. Are there any other traffic, open traffic issues? I know, didn't John Anako mention at one point, Chief, that Middle Beach Road was going to be, the state had plan on, or there was a plan within town to pave Middle Beach Road later this fall? Do you know if that is still ongoing?
I think the road repavement schedule has been somewhat changed. I know they had a list. At one point that was scheduled for the fall, I believe, but it's somewhat changed.
Okay.
I think it's more a necessity. I think that they may be waiting for us to get through the storm cycle of the fall.
Okay,
Before we start fixing roads, only have to dig them up again.
because I remember at one point it was scheduled for the 4th of July week, which thankfully was postponed. So, anyway, so if that is off schedule, fine. Is there anything else on traffic that we need to cover, Tom?
No, I just have to send an update to Christie for some items that can be changed from pending to complete.
Okay, great. Thanks, Tom. Thanks for your follow-up with that.
Yep. Tom, should be returning from vacation next week.
Fine.
Okay. And the only other one we had was the request for the sight lines down by Liberty Street and Signal Hill on Route 1. And that's been addressed.
I don't want to get us off track here. On the other hand, we are on traffic issues. At one point, I know there was a request and a plan to widen Route 1 at the intersection of Wall Street, right by the library there. Do you know, is that still part of a plan?
At one point it was, but that's changed. The downtown project has changed from what it was initially. I think that the DOT is still, it seems to me, based on my correspondence with them as the LTA, is that they're moving a lot of their work up 90, Route 79 and Horsepond from the connector. It seems that the state has is doing some of the improvements there, including the traffic lights and signage.
Okay,
So those are scheduled for the fall. I noticed they've already had tree crews there. Not associated with the storm, associated with sight lines and things for the DOT.
okay, good. Hey, new business. Steve?
Oh, the only thing I have is that I did a webcast on, I was asked by NAACP to do a webcast, and I was asked by Tamara Lanier, who I know from Racial Profiling Prohibition Project, and it basically was mostly southeastern Connecticut and New London, Groton, and I thought it went very well. They were very, folks there were very receptive. The mayor was on it, as well as other elected officials. Essentially, I guess what she was asking is some of the innovative ideas that we've done in this community, how best can we apply them in conjunction of what they're looking at to accomplish in southeastern Connecticut and the two major cities. So it was a pretty good discussion. It lasted about an hour and a half, 2 hours. And so I was happy to do it. And I think we're going to be doing one with Bridgeport area soon.
Okay, good. Well, I think many of the agencies, and certainly as a result of some national events. Certainly in Connecticut, we're in an educational communication environment. And I think your participation in some of these webcasts or other state forums is helpful, not just in, representing directly Madison, but really in given your background and experience representing law enforcement. So I think these are helpful. I think the networking is helpful, and the ability at some point, as this legislation statute is written, the ability to influence some of the implementation and details aspect is also going to be helpful. So I'm glad to hear you're continuing to be invited to participate in these forums.
I'm going to have a meeting shortly with the head of the task force that was put together by the General Assembly for some of the changes to state laws, the Animal Police Accountability Act. So I look forward to that. I look forward to that give and take. I think that, well, certainly in Madison, is that we have basically structured ourselves, and from all the hard work from the past years, and hats off to the people I've worked with, and Joe especially, for your creative critical thinking on some of the topics from CALEA, has put us out in front of a lot of this that's happening within the state. We're very fortunate. On the other side, they kind of look to us at times as a model, could we help them? How would be a better way to deserve this? But one thing I am finding from these communities is you don't have the financial backing. So it's nice to put in compliance laws and ask people they must comply and do this and that with training, as we talked to earlier, but you also have to fund it. So if they're going to put together a training certification unit within their agency, they have to fund it and make sure it maintains once they achieve that status. They can't just let it go. So I beseech them when I speak to these groups that you have to do that. You have to, if you invest in it, you stay with it, and it's proven. It's a template that will keep your officers and your department out of trouble, and very progressive.
I have a question on that, Chief John. It's because it's really interesting around the funding. Are there any private sources that have ever been tapped to raise funds for things like this?
My suggestion was the insurance carriers, because at one time, KERMA, which is our carrier, it's Connecticut's local insurance for, I forgot how many communities are part of that, but a good number of the communities within the state of Connecticut. And there's other organizations similar in Hartford or Bridgeport area, Fairfield. They were basically funding tier 1 CALEA for some of their towns. Clinton was a recipient of probably, what was it, $11,000, $13,000, Joe, to achieve tier 1, which they're working on right now. They've resurrected that. So, I mean, I suggested that to the towns that are on, when we have those discussions, and the towns that are there, I suggest they go to their insurance carrier. And like most insurance carriers or banks, they have to, because of a 501c status or a separate component to give back to the communities, they're able to fund these things.
Could you, if you have any information, can you email me some information on that?
What's that?
If you have any information on it, can you email me that?
Certainly. For us, it's KERMA, and I'll get you that address. But right now, KERMA, I think, has funded 3 communities.
Okay. Okay. Chief, we talked about the Police Accountability Act. Is there anything on the old business that we need to touch upon since our last meeting regarding the proposed?
I had a great conversation with the counsel for the Senate today, who called and was asking questions, how I felt about certain things. We talked about the secondary task force that's going to be set up. I did tell them that I have an interest in that. I used that phrase. I'd like to be part of the team that guides this, especially if they're going to change compliance laws. I'd like to be, I use the term of, I get blamed for the crash, going to be on the takeoff planning. So, so that was rather good. I think that when I sit and I meet with the, tomorrow with a group of legislators, I think that discussion will take place, a further discussion. I was on the phone last night with 2 senators from my home and discussion of some aspects of the Accountability Act. My sense is that I think they're realizing that some of the applications to the passing of that are going to be either a cost dilemma for some communities, that they really, it didn't go through the process of passing a law, planning, research, funding, what's it going to cost us to do that? What's going to cost the impact of the communities? So I think that now a lot of folks are saying, I think we have to go back and we're going to have to work on this redesign. The core of it will probably stay intact, but I believe that a lot of it is going to change. And quite frankly, you want policing, you want corrections, you want juvenile justice, you want criminal justice, and all that is associated with that, judges inclusive, to all catch up by October 1st, January 1st, July 1st. That's a big task in the state of Connecticut. So I think that they've had enough input after the fact, after the vote, and let's see where it goes from there. I'm hoping to have another discussion with Senator Winfield. I'm not sure if that will occur, but I know that the folks on juvenile justice and the folks on racial profiling prohibition project are very much, they're happy of our participation. They're happy that they come to us and ask us for suggestions. We've, the time I spend, and Captain Race has spent time with them also, and some of the laws, that they're going to suggest come October and January. So I'm happy that we have that recognition and respect, and I hope that continues and that we're able to somewhat help design where this goes. We're fortunate. Madison is AAA Fitch rating. We have reserves. A lot of communities don't have anything. They're struggling with a C rating.
Well, it's, as I said, it's helpful to participate as this, which is very comprehensive Police Accountability Act is analyzed and discussed, and it's I think not satisfying, but it's certainly appreciating they're going back to look at some of the things and what's the expense impact. What you said, Madison was doing an awful lot of things right. Certainly any police agency, including Madison, can improve some things that we're doing. But I think it's good to participate. I'm sure there's going to be input from a lot of sources, but glad to hear you've been invited to participate up to this point, and hopefully continuing going forward. So it's a good investment of your time, Chief. We recognize there's only so much time in a week, but I think this absolutely makes sense in terms of making sure that your views are at least heard. So appreciate that.
It's most certainly an important piece, and I think that we have to, and I always stress to those that I speak to in regards to certifications, that's great, you achieve it, but you have to maintain it. You have to, this is proofs, if not every week, every day. This is accountability. This is, it takes a lot of elbow grease to do this, and once you have it down on paper, you have to maintain it. And it's not as easy as people think. So if they commit to it, and I hope, hopefully they will, and legislation most certainly will support it. Maybe down the road they will find funding. But I at this point, so far the give and take and the discussions I think are good. Maybe they didn't occur before, but I think right now they're good.
Good. The only other thing that I would put under old business was at our last meeting, we went into executive session to talk about the labor contract proposal for the police union that covers patrol officers as well as sergeants and lieutenants. It's understand that a full and final offer was made. to the union through Deb Millardo, who's the HR director. And after some review and discussion by the union, they voted to ratify the proposal today. Is that right, Joe? Was it later this afternoon or earlier this afternoon that the ratification vote was taken?
Yes, it was, yeah.
So this is, I think this is absolutely positive news. I think the chief and Joe working with Deb, I think presented, I think a strong case for why it made sense for us to take some a little more aggressive steps on the wage side to get back into a competitive posture. I had the opportunity to discuss some of the priorities of us the importance of us remaining competitive and the implications of that on the retention of staff, with the Board of Selectmen at a previous meeting. So I think the chief and Deb at the table did a good job conveying that to the union. So I think in the next, not sure whether all of it was included in this packet of information, but certainly the next package, agenda package, I'll give you provide the summary, but officers will get 12% over the next 3 years. Sergeants and lieutenants will get 12.75% structured over July, January adjustments. And then it's a 5-year agreement. And then years 4 and 5, there'll be a wage reopener. And there's also, I think, increases for the shift premium. So those are the, we talked about the strategy in terms of staying away from any significant changes to the medical or pension, focusing on what seemed to be the highest priority, and that is, let's get our salaries to where they are competitive. It has significant implications on us being able to recruit, particularly recruiting, lateral transfers. I think the negotiating team representing the town did that. I think the union, recognized the importance of it. So this is a good settlement. I mean, we have a contract that does provide, I think, an ability to manage the department effectively over the next 5 years. There are no, changes at all to the management rights. Undoubtedly, there are going to be individual instances that sometimes come up in terms of interpretation, particularly in the scheduling aspect, which is always a priority, as we saw recently. But this was a good settlement, and Chief and Captain, congratulations. It was a good one to get behind us. So terrific. Any questions anyone might have that the Chief or Joe or myself can answer? And Al, I know the Board of Selectmen is going to have a discussion Monday morning to, agree to the proposed settlement. So, I'm hopeful that it will go smoothly and hopefully get your support and endorsement of it as well. From the agency, I think it is a fair settlement that certainly hit our key objectives. So, Commissioner comments.
Sorry, one brief issue, and actually refers to communication, and just so that I put it on so you folks are aware of it, is we have the Route 79 towers where the old police department was, across from the ambulance barn, which sits on the opposite side of Route 79 from the bank, that little medical center. So we have a contract on that tower. The tower is not part of the conveyance if that property sells, but And that tower generates $250,000 a year in revenue. So it's amazing to build these towers for communication. They've got basically self-fund support, whatever you have for debt to construct them and beyond, because they last beyond what the debt is. But anyway, so the discussion comes up that we may have to somehow renegotiate. The last contract we have expires in 2025, and seeing how we've worked on radio projects before, and they're 5 years out, we're sitting down, and at this discussion I've had with the first select woman, with Sammy DeBura, with some of the other services, is that site is very important, because that is a site, and we've contributed an additional $500,000 plus onto that site in the last 24 months. That it's paramount to communication on that Route 1 corridor, where we have a lot of population and most certainly people in the summertime. So it's imperative to us to maintain that site, or if they're not going to allow us to, that we look to build a similar structure, maybe perhaps behind the ambulance barn. It's not big dollars. I think that the actual tower itself probably is less than $100,000. But, and of course, if we were to build that tower and we have the rights, then that would, hopefully those vendors would also go with the town tower. I want to put it out there only because we're starting discussions now, although it's 5 years away, but 5 years will be here sooner than later. I think it'd be prudent that we discuss it, so that when I'm gone, and maybe Sammy's gone, whoever the next generation is, Joe, that we're able to still operate effectively with emergency communications throughout the town, and most certainly that the area of Route 1. We have a lot of seniors that do live in that area, and a lot of senior people in the apartments along Route 1, let alone the critical infrastructure and the beaches. So I just want to put that out there, just to know. You'll probably have more discussion. I know, Al, that we're going to have a discussion with the Board of Selectmen in regards to it. I just think it's prudent that we get out in front now.
It's good. It's a good caution. It certainly makes sense. Thanks.
So that's all I have, sir.
Good. Commissioner comments, Marietta?
I'm good. I have no comments. Thanks.
Thank you. Tom?
One of the things we have discussed in the past was, I believe we have an additional board selectman, a board member from one of the committees, finance perhaps, who was liaison with the police department, who has not been in attendance at any meetings for perhaps 6 months. And now with the criticality of finances in the town and all the things we're looking at, what have we done to address that, to get someone who perhaps might be a little more interested in participating?
Are you asking me, Tom?
I'm asking either you or Ed or Al.
I do speak on a regular basis with Ken Kaminsky and with the chairwoman, Jean Fitzgerald. And that example is when I knew that we had to take on another 2 more weeks with the schools. I had that conversation with both of them, so they're aware. So we have that give and take still going on. I could ask that Ken Kaminsky start signing in on the Zoom meetings. I'm not quite sure we sent him a invite to the meeting. Did we, Joe? Yeah, and I know that there was a discussion, maybe they might change. Somebody might switch roles. It's one of the other members of the Board of Finance. But they're still involved, although they're not on the Zoom. I hear from them and we talk.
One of the things that's beneficial, had been beneficial in the past with an outside board member coming in, be it Al, who, thank you, Al, you are always there. And these meetings present valuable pieces of information, and Chief, your communication skills are excellent. But it still speaks to the fact that there is a tidbit, there's a nugget of information, there's a feeling for how the commission handles itself, there's a feeling for how the department handles itself, that I think is worthwhile if the gentleman has committed to being the liaison to actually participate.
Tom, this was, I agree with you. I mean, there should be a, I think, Chief, you've got a great relationship with the Board of Finance members. On the other hand, I think there was a formal Board of Finance liaison, and Ken Kaminsky, I thought was very helpful when we went through some budget issues. To your point, just having the insight. So now maybe you and I can talk and we can see how it might be raised with the Board of Finance to have somebody who at least has that designated title. Again, I appreciate the commitment that any volunteer board member makes in the town for Selectmen, Board of Finance, Board of Ed. I mean, it's just it just it does chew up some time, but we should raise the asking them to identify, is there someone that can participate or we can provide certain information to at different times just to maintain a little more structured relationship with them. So Tom, we'll raise it. I'll follow up with Al, and we can talk with the chief to see how we might formalize that designation. It's certainly up until recently, fairly recently over the last 2 years, where we seem to drift away. Jim Madison was a liaison for a long time, as you recall, and then Ken. So I'll follow up with that.
Thank you.
Ann,
I don't have any comments at this time.
Christina, anything?
I don't have any comments either.
And I'm silent as well. So I think it's we did seem to get through the high impact summer months, and then the beach issues seem to have been solved. Undoubtedly, we'll have to think more about next year from a planning point of view. But I think this was an active summer that culminated with these storms. So, Chief, thank you and your staff for at least getting us to the point where you can draw a little bit of a breath before we go into the fall and the trick or treat situation. So, anyway, thank you very much. Is there a motion for this meeting to adjourn?
Motion for the meeting to adjourn.
Are we going into executive?
I don't think there's a reason for us to go into executive session, given that the labor contract has been tentatively ratified by the union. So, is there a second to the motion to adjourn?
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you very much for your participation. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all.